Welcome to the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. I'm your host, Corey Graham. Join us here every Friday night at 8 p.m. or listen anytime via podcast at Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, to name just a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where the independent new authors come first. Author Vicki Barrows has written an imaginative story that encourages self-discovery, creativity, and the use of God-given gifts. The name of the book is Bebop and the Doo-Wops. And Vicki is sitting right here with me now, and we're going to be talking all about it. Vicki, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being here tonight.
Thank you so much. It's fun to do this.
It's great to be talking with you. I can't wait to learn about Bebop and the Doo-Wops, Vicki. Can you tell me all about this?
Yeah, so this book, as you said, is about a honeybee named Bebop, and she's uncertain of her identity and her gifts and talents, but her father helps her figure out what she's been created to do, and she goes on to fulfill her calling and bless her community with her gifts, and she also invites some of her good friends to join her on her journey.
Vicki, what kinds of readers do you think this would be best for?
Well, this is a children's book, so obviously I hope it'll really bless a lot of children. But really, the whole thing came out in the form of a poem. So I think anybody who's interested in poetry, and yes, I'm a little biased, but I think it's kind of fun and whimsical. And then I think parents maybe who are wanting to help their children identify gifts and talents might also be blessed by it and find something good in there.
So, Vicki, how'd this all come about? What inspired you to write this?
Oh, gosh. It happened so long ago that it's kind of hard for me to remember exactly what happened. But I had, many years ago, I worked at the University of Montana, and I really enjoyed writing. I wrote a lot of things for my job there. And then there was a professor on campus who studied bees, and I was really fascinated with his work. And that's where I first found out that honeybees actually do dances in the air to communicate with other bees as to where to find nectar and that sort of thing. And so then those two things kind of came together, the writing and the honeybees. And then also I'm a drummer, and so I played drums at my church for a while. And so I had Bebop be a drummer as well. But she got to actually have a rock and roll band. I was wanting to, but it never happened for me. So I'm living vicariously through her. But anyway, it really started a really long time ago. So I got the idea, I got started writing it, and then I put it on the shelf for quite a while. And really, there were times when I thought about giving up. I kind of had some self-doubts. Probably lots of authors do. Oh, who's going to want to read this? Maybe it's not that good, and so on. So it sat on the shelf for a while. But then a woman at my church some years ago led a vision casting group study. And so we all made a vision board and put our items on the vision board. So I put a picture of a little honeybee on there. And after that, I was really inspired to get back to it. But even at that point, I kind of went through writer's block for a little while because I had the beginning and I had the ending, but I didn't have a transition. But after I prayed about it, I just said, Lord, if you want me to do this, it needs to go forward here pretty soon, or maybe I should just bag it. But after I finished that prayer, all of a sudden I felt like I knew what I was supposed to write. So I ran to my computer and sat down and filled in the middle, and that's how it happened.
So is this the first time you've been published then?
It is the first time I've published a book. I have written articles for my job at the university, like I said, and I've written a lot of other poetry, most of the time as a blessing to a friend or family member for a birthday gift or whatever. But yeah, so this is the first published book.
Well, I could only imagine then whenever that first copy was finally in, you were actually holding this in your hands for the first time, Vicki. What was that like?
Oh, it was awesome. So oh my goodness, I just had, all these feelings that I'm sure brand new authors always feel. So I was exhilarated and full of gratitude, and it was so satisfying. I think there was a little happy dance involved. And I kept pinching myself, and I couldn't wipe the smile off my face. So it's just been so exciting, and the response has been really wonderful. And so, yeah, it's just been a great experience.
So much time and work went into this. So when you think about that, your work is out there now. What's the most rewarding aspect of this all for you?
I really think, Corey, that if people are simply, if they just enjoy the book or if they're blessed in any way, I just want people to enjoy it.
Well, I love the message in this book. Again, it's titled Bebop and the Doo-Wops. It's written by Vicki Barrows and published by Christian Faith Publishing. So head on over to Amazon or Barnes & Noble or iTunes and traditional brick-and-mortar stores. You'll be able to pick this up. Vicki, thank you so much again for coming on the show. It was really great to talk with you.
Thank you, Corey. I really appreciate it.
Joining me right now here at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable is author Clyde Smith. Clyde, welcome. Thank you for being here tonight.
Well, thank you for having me, Corey.
Clyde, I'm excited you have a new book out titled Making Disciples, a resource for becoming a better Christian witness. So, Clyde, can you tell me what you've written about here?
Oh, certainly. Well, making disciples, first of all, is about the Great Commission. Jesus tells us in Matthew 28 to go forth and, make disciples of all nations. Notice he doesn't say go save people because he's the one that does the saving. Secondly, it starts out sort of autobiographical. I talk about some of the trials and tribulations that the Lord helped me overcome. Growing up in a severely mental and physically abusive household. I left home at 18 to join the military, became successful in a business. About 10 years into the marriage, we decided we felt led to go into the missionary field in Africa. So we sold everything, the house, nice cars and everything. But the Lord had other plans. So we spent the next few years in low-income housing. And that's where we learned to really trust God and help develop our faith and listen to his voice and learn to share the gospel. And that's where the subtitle of the book comes in, a resource for becoming a better witness. And I have this passion to share the gospel, but in the beginning, I just wasn't very good at it. I meant well, but then when I had a better understanding of Scripture, God was using me more successfully to lead people to him. And that's really what the book is all about. So I know a lot of us struggle with sharing our testimony or sharing answers to questions because, gospel does talk about that. Always give a reason for the hope that you have, but do it with gentleness and respect. So there's plenty of examples here in the book to be able to help you answer some of the questions that people may have about the gospel.
So would you say this is geared mainly towards believers then?
I would say that's the primary goal. However, because it's meant for believers to help lead non-believers to Christ, this is a good book for non-believers to read in order to get the answers to the questions they probably already have.
So when it comes to writing, publishing, and all that, do you have experience in this, or is this kind of new ground for you?
New ground when it comes to publishing a book. When I first came to the Lord, within the first year, I was asked to write on a Christian apologetic local newsletter because I did have a passion for studying the Word, and that's where I began writing. And eventually, years later, it led to writing my first book.
So what was that spark? What was that thing that made you say, hey, I got to sit down and start off on this book?
As I was studying over the years, I always was thinking, okay, I feel comfortable enough to be able to share this topic, for example, on real faith. So I started creating little Bible studies, if you will. And I decided, well, eventually I would like to write a book on that particular subject or trying to understand the Trinity and those kind of things. Well, what they eventually end up becoming were not books, but individual chapters in a book for the subject I have a passion for, and that's sharing the gospel.
So once you started it, was this a long journey for you overall, the writing and publishing and everything?
It was. Last couple of years, I've been very serious about it. Things just start coming together, adding new chapters, moving some around, and eventually it felt led to go ahead and just send it in and see what happens.
There's nothing like that finished product. It was finally a real thing. Your first copy came in and you were holding it in your hands, making disciples for the first time, Clyde. What was that moment like for you?
It was sort of surreal. It's like, okay, this is what it looks like, because I had envisioned it, but the Lord had different ideas and put things together for me. And I'm really grateful to the Lord because he didn't throw everything at me at once. That'd have been overwhelming. It's like, I'm done. Well, no, I want you to move some chapters around. And so it was kind of nice not to be overwhelmed, but little by little, the Lord would reveal to me what he wanted in the book and how he wanted it.
I think this is going to touch a lot of readers. Again, it's titled Making Disciples, a resource for becoming a better Christian witness. It's written by Clyde Smith, published by Christian Faith Publishing, and available pretty much everywhere like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Clyde, thank you again for coming on the show. It's been really great talking with you.
Well, thank you for having me, Corey.
The book I'm holding right now is a charming tale that follows a young boy as he learns all about the animals at the zoo. It's written by Tambra Kennedy, and it's titled Eli and Gogo's Adventures at the Zoo. We get to talk all about the book right now here at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. Tambra is sitting here with me. Tambra, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Tambra, can you tell me all about Eli and Gogo's Adventures at the Zoo and what readers are going to find here?
Well, Eli is my grandson, and he and I do a lot of things together. And one of the things that we love to do is go to the zoo and learn about all the different animals. So I just decided to write a book about it.
And Tambra, what kinds of readers do you think this would connect with the most?
Probably any kid that loves animals, because there's facts in there. I'm a retired teacher, and I believe that a story with some educational facts in it is a good thing. But probably like age 4 to maybe 8.
So what does your writing background look like? Have you done anything like this before?
No, I never have. Like I said, I'm a retired teacher. I taught for 30 years, and obviously I taught writing, but I just decided one day to write about our adventures that we go on.
And so once you sat down, got started on this, was this a long process overall, the writing and publishing, the whole thing?
No, actually, I had it in my head, and I was just kind of constructing it in my head for a couple of months. And then I just sat down and wrote it on the computer. It took me about a day and a half because I had it all in my head. The publishing process was a little bit harder, but I ran across Newman Springs, and so they've been very helpful, and I think it turned out great.
Yeah, so once you started working with your publisher, Newman Springs, what would you say was the most challenging part about that publishing end of things for you?
The illustrations and getting the book formatted the way that I pictured it to be formatted was a little bit of a struggle because they formatted it as a storybook, and I wanted it to be, part story and part fact. I just had a way I wanted it done. But it went fine. They were very, very helpful once I explained how I wanted it to be done.
Then that day finally came, and it was a real thing. It was done. That first copy was in your hands, Tambra. What was that moment like for you?
It was amazing. It was really amazing. There really aren't words. I was very proud of it. I wrote it for my grandson. It was just amazing.
And so now it's out there. You're a published author. What would you say is the most rewarding aspect of this all for you?
Having people read it and like it and comment about it. I do substitute teaching in my retirement when I'm not playing with my grandson. And so I've read the story to a couple of classrooms, and they all seem to really like it. And that makes me feel good.
So looking ahead, do you see yourself maybe doing this again? Do you think you got some more books in you?
I do, actually. I have a couple that I have kind of started. They're in my head right now, and I haven't sat down at the computer yet because I don't feel like I'm quite ready. They're more about Eli and our adventures on the farm and at the aquarium and different places that we go.
Well, Tambra, we have a lot of listeners right now, and they're authors who are just starting out. Do you maybe have some advice that you could offer to them?
Yeah, just do what you love, write it out, and be persistent. When you're looking for a publishing company, do your research, because there's a lot out there that aren't on the up and up. But persist. If you believe in what you've done, persist, and it'll get done, and it'll be great, and you'll be very proud.
So who or what would you say is the most inspirational to you in your life, especially when it comes to things like this?
My grandson. He's everything to me. He's my only grandson. He will always be my only grandson, and I just watch him learning and growing, and his excitement when he learns something new. It's phenomenal.
What a wonderful book. Again, it's titled Eli and Gogo's Adventures at the Zoo. It's written by Tambra Kennedy and published by Newman Springs Publishing. So head on over to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, or traditional brick-and-mortar stores, and you'll be able to pick it up. Tambra, it's been so nice talking with you tonight. Thank you so much again for coming on the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Have a good evening.
All Things Through Christ is the new book by Robert Walderman, and it's a discussion of how Christ serves as the ultimate mediator between humanity and the divine. We're going to talk all about it right now here at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. The author, Robert, is sitting right here with me. Robert, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me.
Well, thank you so much for the invitation.
Robert, can you tell me what you've written about in All Things Through Christ?
Well, as you just encapsulated, the book's thrust is the essential mediatorial work of Christ, as Christ being the only connection between God and all of creation, redemption and glorification. That's pretty much what the book tries to bring out, while also laying out how the intrapersonal relationship of the Trinity might be working.
Robert, what sorts of readers did you have in mind for it?
Well, the demographic is pretty much a Christian audience, those who have a basic concept of the Trinity and whose approach to understanding Scripture would be Christocentric. I feel the title would appeal to such an audience as All Things, hints at the supremacy and centrality of Christ.
So how did this all come about, Robert? What gave you the inspiration to start on it?
Well, it kind of arose from reviewing many of my sermons. You know, I'm a retired pastor. I've given many sermons, and I had something to say about the subject. I was awestruck by and also humbled at Christ's love for me and everything he did to work out my own salvation. That's a truth and wonder that I felt needed to be shared with others.
So is this the first time you've been published?
Yes, it is.
So being the first time, was this a long process overall, including the publishing part and everything?
It's a little hard to pinpoint since some of the material, as I said, came from my sermons over the years, but I'd say probably 2 to 2.5 years. I submitted the manuscript to Covenant Book Publishers in February 2024, and it was published this May. So, yeah, I'd say about 2.5 years.
So once you started working with your publisher, Covenant Books, what would you say was the most challenging part about that publishing process for you?
Well, just continually doing the review and checking up on the references and making sure everything like that was in order.
And there is nothing like seeing that finished product, that thing that you work so hard for. So once you had the first copy of All Things Through Christ in your hands, Robert, what was that moment like for you?
I sighed a sigh of satisfaction. It was fulfilling one of those bucket list items that felt good to check off. But I also felt that I contributed something that, if it was read, would in a small way advance the kingdom of God. You know, there are, if I may, many classical masterpieces and books that people read for educational value and entertainment value. But religious books, specifically Christian religion, provides eternal value when they focus on eternal biblical truths of the eternal God. You know, Daniel Webster had made a profound and almost prophetic statement. He said, if religious books are not widely circulated among the masses in this country, I do not know what is going to become of us as a nation. If truth be not diffused, error will be. If God and his word are not known and received, the devil and his works will gain the ascendancy. I feel my small book to be maybe a little drop in the ocean, but one that presents a awesome and almighty God and contributes to Webster's call for religious books.
So when writer's block hits, those words just aren't coming out. Do you have some sort of strategy, something you do to get those things going again?
Well, I pray about it, for one thing. I find that sometimes just writing, even if it doesn't seem right, but just write some words, sometimes that triggers a good thought and gets you back on track. Other times it doesn't, and you just kind of toss it away, but it's an attempt to make progress.
Well, I think this book is going to bless a lot of readers. Again, it's titled All Things Through Christ. It's written by Robert Walderman and published by Covenant Books. So pick it up at places like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Robert, thank you again for coming on the show. It was really great to talk with you tonight.
Well, thank you, Corey, again for inviting me.
The new book by author Ellen Kent is titled Ninon, Edited, and it centers around a girl's journey to maintain her authentic self to adulthood, regardless of attempts to alter her core. Ellen is right here with me now at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. We get to talk all about the book. Ellen, welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Nice to meet you.
Ellen, can you tell me all about Ninon and what people can expect when they get into it?
Well, I think what they can expect is a journey. And I think a little bit of my background might be important of why I wrote the book and why I'm going to be vague in my response to that question, is that I'm a clinical psychologist and I have an aversion to self-help books for a specific reason, because I think we are all unique and I think we're like a kaleidoscope of colors. And the reason I don't like self-help books isn't for the reason that I don't think they have valuable information in it, but I don't like people to grab onto a label, because I think at the end of the day, we need to take responsibility for choices that we make, and that we're not just fixed as one person, but we have different windows we go through our entire life that are intriguing to us. And when I wrote the book, I don't want to tell people what to feel or think, because I think every person who reads the book will get something different out of it. Basically, this is a history of a girl and things that happened to her and how she journeys through her life.
Ellen, what sorts of readers do you think this would connect with the best?
Well, that's an interesting question also, because when I first wrote it and before I had input, and I wish more people would write reviews, because I get people who find a way to contact me have given me unbelievable responses. I thought only women would like it. And I only thought that people from the East Coast or from New York would like it. And I haven't found that to be the experience. A good example is, who did not write reviews, by the way, is one of my sons read it. Two of my sons read it. And one of my brothers read it. And my one brother, who is a retired university professor, and said, Ellen, that was a really great book. It held my interest. I was surprised because I was just being a brother when I read it. My middle son, who is the one son that did read it, said to me, Mom, when are you writing another book? Because he was totally into it. Then I had a person who I had met at a restaurant who, when I went back in there, who was a waiter, who was a married man, said, I bought the book because I liked you, and I read the book because it was easy to read. And he said to me, and I didn't ask him how, he said, it changed my life. So I was shocked. I expected the responses from women. I did not expect the responses from men. And I constructed the book in a very specific way. Is when I read a book, I've noticed you'll have a chapter that's 50 pages long. And so there may be 5 chapters or 6 chapters. My book has 42 chapters because I did it like a vignette and little things so that a person could go forward and read it and then be willing to stop because I finished that thought. But then people ended up reading the same 50 pages but didn't find the same obligation to read it because they didn't have to finish the thought that I was approaching in the book.
Ellen, what does your writing background look like? Are you new to all this, or do you have experience in it?
Well, I have a lot of education. I have 17 years full-time at college, and I had to write my dissertation, which was a very long dissertation. So I've always written my whole life. In fact, a cute side trick, which is not part of the book, I don't think, is that when I was in 5th grade, many of us had this, you get 20 spelling words and you have to put them in sentences, but you were allowed to write a story to use the 20 words. So what I used to do is I'd write a story, but I would continue it to the next week. So every week I had to go in front of my class and read my story that I didn't even know where it was going to go to because I didn't know what the 20 words were going to be. So I've always written. I've always liked writing.
This book is titled Ninon, Edited. It's written by Ellen Kent and published by Newman Springs Publishing. So find it at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and right down the street at your local bookshop.
Ellen, thank you again for coming on the show and telling me all about your work. It was really nice talking with you tonight.
Thank you so much, and it was nice speaking with you.
The new book by Cecilia Evette is a collection of poetry born from faith, resilience, and spiritual transformation. The book is called I Wonder, Can You See Me? Cecilia is here with me right now at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, and we get to talk all about it. Cecilia, welcome. Thank you for joining me tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Cecilia, can you tell me what you've written in I Wonder, Can You See Me?
In this book, I've written kind of a journey, a spiritual journey for myself with inspirational poetry that basically just brought me through some trying times and also some very victorious times as well. So I put this collection together to not only help me, but to help others. So that is what this book is actually about. It's just inspiring others through poetry.
Were there specific readers that you had in mind for it?
I didn't particularly just write it toward one genre, male or female. This book is written for all ages and also for man, woman, or child. I believe that everyone can actually get something out of this book.
So how'd this all come about? What was your motivation to start on this?
This book, as I've declared that it was inspired by God and also through a very trying time in my life as I returned from deployment out in Iraq. I came home to some trials and tribulations, and I just had to take a pivot in my life to make sure that not only myself physically was okay, but my spiritual self was okay. So that is what actually ignited the change in the way that I write and the actual start of this book.
So once you got started on it, was this a long journey for you overall, the writing and publishing and everything?
Yes, sir. In writing poetry, it goes through different inspirations in life, right? So it was not something that I could just sit down in one day and just write about all of these different experiences. And so these experiences happen through time, through many years, actually. There's several different poems that I did write that didn't make the book, but to put the collection together to tell a story. So it did take many years to put it together and also to gain the courage to actually release it because it is part of my story.
Is this the first time you've ever done anything like this?
Yes, sir.
So once you started working with your publisher, Christian Faith, what would you say was the most challenging part of that publishing process for you?
I would say the most challenging part was the releasing. And I say that because, again, this is part of my life's journey. And as we know, you can put things out there and they could be viewed in different ways. My main focus was this is my story and this is how I arrived to the victory that I have. And so I had to be able to allow the releasing within myself first. And so that was the challenging part. The publishers were very encouraging. They actually kept me focused and also kind of kept giving me a little push. But in all, it had to be in my actual release.
I'm looking at it right now, and the cover really grabs you. Can you tell me the thought behind that, the masks and everything?
With the mask, many, many times throughout my journey in life, I kind of felt like I was masking a lot of the things that I was going through, where no one could really see behind the mask unless you pull the mask down. So being able to display the fact that many people hide behind a mask, and that is the inspiration from it, is that we don't have to hide anymore.
Man, I could only imagine what you were thinking and what you were feeling whenever the first copy came in. It was finally real. You're holding I Wonder, Can You See Me in your hands for the first time, Cecilia. What was that like for you?
It was unreal. I couldn't believe that it was actually in my hands and that it was actually available to be in someone else's hand. That's the part that I was just really kind of nervous about. I'm like, oh my goodness, it's somewhere else across the country in someone else's hand reading this story.
Well, I know this book is going to touch a lot of lives. Again, it's titled I Wonder, Can You See Me? It's written by Cecilia Evette, published by Christian Faith Publishing, and available basically everywhere. Places like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Cecilia, it's been really wonderful talking with you tonight. Thank you again for being on the show with me.
Thank you again for having me.
Silent Determination: One Woman's Battle to Survive and Thrive with a Rare Brain Disease. That's the name of the new book, written by Peter Cahill, and it's a tribute to love, resilience, and unwavering courage in the face of a devastating diagnosis. And I'm really happy that Peter is here with me right now at the show, and we get to talk all about it. Peter, welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
Peter, can you tell me about Silent Determination and what you've written about here?
Of course. Silent Determination is a book that's a tribute to my wife, who struggled with a disease called neurofibromatosis for over 35 years. It's a hereditary disease where brain tumors grow in the skull and in the spine and can only be removed by surgery. She was diagnosed when she was 29 years old. She was a school teacher with a young toddler and soon to have another toddler. She experienced headaches and back pain and neck pain, and finally was diagnosed with a tumor on her left auditory nerve. They were able to remove that tumor fairly easily, and we thought it was kind of a one-and-done deal, and off we went back to our normal life, although she did lose hearing in that ear. Unfortunately, it's rare, but she also, another year later, developed another tumor on her other auditory nerve, which had to be removed, and when they removed that tumor, she became profoundly deaf. So she had two small children, a progressive chronic hereditary disease, lost her job, and had two small children. The story is about how she not only endured that set of circumstances, but thrived as a result of them, and also touched the lives of so many people along the way. She had a very special personality. She became an advocate for late deaf and adults. She became an advocate for service dogs. She became an advocate for the disability community. She touched a lot of children through those programs. She learned sign language and became a sign language teacher, touched hundreds of adults, teaching them sign language so that they could work with autistic children or with deaf family members or with students who had trouble with their language requirement in high school. We went on to teach adult education classes. Several of our students became interpreters. She started a couple of businesses, a mosaic business, as well as her own consulting business. Raised the two children, and just had a special way of showing people that if she could deal with this disease the way she did, that they could get on with their lives and maybe not take the small things so seriously and look for the good in people and look for a way to do better. And that's kind of the lessons that she taught them, all through the power of her own determination and her personality.
Wow, that's so inspiring. So what gave you the idea to write the book?
Well, after my wife passed about 4 years ago, I was in a grief group, and the leader said one day, some people kind of work through their grief in different ways. Some of the ways is to arts and crafts, painting, writing, and it kind of stuck in the back of my head. And so at one point I sat down and I decided to just start writing down some of the humorous things that she said. She was a very, very funny person with a great personality. So I thought I'd just write some of the Andrea-isms down. And as I started to do that, I started to write a little bit of the chronology of things as it came back to me. And I thought maybe I'd put together a little book, a family book for my children, their grandchildren, my grandchildren and great-grandchildren. It became cathartic for me. I sat down and I would write for 6-8 hours a day, sort of a stream of consciousness. In the end, I created a manuscript. By amazing set of circumstances, kind of divine intervention, I found an editor who took a look at the manuscript and said, "You've got a real book here. I'd like to take it on." He did. He helped me find a publisher, and it got published, and now we've rolled it out, and we're promoting it for the good of our foundation at Mass General Hospital, where 100% of all proceeds from the book and from all of our fundraising activities go to our foundation, which is based on research for finding a cure for NF2.
So what's your writing background look like, Peter? Have you ever tried anything like this before?
Never. One of the themes that runs through the book is faith, and I think there was a certain amount of divine intervention in the writing of the book as well. As I mentioned, finding the editor, finding the person that's helping me to promote it now, and pulling the whole thing together. It's not something that I ever contemplated and not something that I ever believed I could do on my own.
What an inspiring story in this book. What a great message. Again, it's titled Silent Determination: One Woman's Battle to Survive and Thrive with a Rare Brain Disease. This is written by Peter Cahill, and published by Christian Faith Publishing, so you can find it at places like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and right down the street at your local bookshop. Peter, thank you again for coming on the show and telling me about this book and about your story. It's been really great talking tonight.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you for having me on and giving me the forum to highlight my book.
Sitting down right here with me now at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable is author Donya S. Gonzalez. Donya, welcome. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Donya, you got a new book out. It's titled Mustard Seed Faith, Hope for the Weary. Can you tell me what you've written about there?
Sure. What I wrote about was what faith looks like, what it looks like in the daily life of a believer, and how it grows.
Would you say this is a book primarily geared toward believers then?
No, it's actually for those seeking truth. So if you're looking, you have doubts or you're curious, it really leads people towards God. So it's not just for believers, it's also for those who are looking for truth.
So how did this all come about, Donya? What inspired you to write it?
So I felt a strong prompting, and I knew it wasn't just a passing thought. It was something that I felt I needed to write to encourage others, those who were trying to understand faith and, the way I once did, because that's what my issue was. When I first believed in God and started following Jesus, I had struggled with, what faith looked like. That's what prompted me to write it.
Have you ever done anything like this before, or is this all kind of a new thing for you?
Actually, I've written another book before this one. I wrote a book prior, and it was about purpose, how the struggles we go through, and that there's a purpose and a plan for everything that we go through in life, whether good or bad, that God has a perfect purpose for it. So I wrote that prior.
So once you got to work on Mustard Seed Faith, was it a long journey overall for you, the writing and publishing and everything?
If you would call a year a long journey, it took me a few months to write it. And then working with a publisher, I would say about 4 months working with a publisher and then getting it to print ready. I would say all about a year.
It happens to so many authors. It can be frustrating. It's writer's block. Was that something you had to deal with?
At times, yes, I struggled, but because this is a faith-based book, prayer helped me a lot, and being guided by the Holy Spirit helped me to put the words on the page. So for those, for people who are struggling, I would say just write. Just sit down and write, even though you may be struggling with what you should say. With my previous book, I did a lot of journaling, so that helped also. And I used some of what I wrote in my journals as fuel for my book. That's what I would recommend.
So once you started working with your publisher, Christian Faith, Donya, what would you say was the most challenging part about that publishing process for you?
The most challenging part, I would say, was the editing part. Cleaning up the work and getting it to where it was publishable, because what sometimes can happen is that a publisher may suggest something and that changes the way you want to say, what you're trying to get across to the reader. So that part was a little difficult for me, but we were able to work through it and get it to completion.
Yeah, you put a lot of hard work into it, and then one day it's finally a real thing. You're holding the first copy of this in your hands, Donya. What was that like?
I mean, it's the most rewarding thing when you've put, like you said, you put your hard work into it, and to see it come to fruition and just see it come to completion it's amazing. It really is amazing. And hearing how, the words God placed on my heart to write, how that encourages others, that really is a great joy. There's no greater joy than that. And knowing something that I wrote helped someone draw closer to Him.
So looking ahead, do you think you got some more books in you? You think you're going to keep doing this?
I do. As a matter of fact, I'm already working on another Christian project, and I'm also considering writing fantasy along the lines of J.R. Tolkien. So, yeah.
Well, I think this book will definitely uplift a lot of readers. Again, it's titled Mustard Seed Faith, Hope for the Weary. It's written by Donya S. Gonzalez and published by Christian Faith Publishing. So head over to places like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, or traditional brick-and-mortar stores, and you'll be able to pick it up. Donya, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been really great talking with you tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Joining me right now here at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable is author Jimmie Dollard. Jimmie, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me tonight.
Glad to be here.
Jimmie, your new book is called Switched. Can you tell me all about what you've written there?
Yeah. Switched is an adventure novel. Our main heroes are two U.S. Forest Service smoke jumpers who lose their jobs when the base closes and then reunite years later. And they are joined by our heroine, a Chinese spy AI expert or artificial intelligence expert who defects and marries one of the heroes, and then together they have a profound impact on the world. In the book, the rich countries lose their electricity and their economies collapse. Poor countries gain access to electricity and their economies flourish. Thus, the economies have switched. Poor countries become rich countries with electricity. Rich countries become poor countries when they lose electricity. Our heroes and heroine fight valiantly against the dictatorships, tyranny, and prejudice to bring electricity to Africa to relieve poverty. And at the same time, they fight bureaucracy and graft to prevent the collapse of the grid in the Western world. To understand how tragic that'd be, just imagine what your life would be without electricity.
Jimmie, what kinds of readers do you think this would connect with the most?
I think every reader, everyone either has electricity and it would be a catastrophe if they lost it, or they don't have electricity and they desperately need it and want it to escape poverty.
So what does your writing background look like, Jimmie? Have you done this kind of thing before?
No, I've only published one other book, and that was an ebook of dog poetry. It's called Rusty's View of the World Through Poetry. It's available on Amazon eBooks. I've written tons of technical papers. This is my first attempt at a novel.
So once you got started on it, was this a long journey for you overall, the writing and publishing and everything?
Well, I had the sketches and ideas for a couple of years, but never finished it until I lost my wife a couple of years ago. So then I dove in and made it, kind of blitzed it in order to deaden my grief. Finished it in a few months.
So once you started working with your publisher, Newman Springs, what did you find the most challenging part about that publishing process for you?
Well, the whole thing was challenging to me because it was my first time. So I would say that basically everything, because I was a newcomer in this.
So once it was finally a real thing, the first copy came in and you're holding Switched in your hands for the first time, Jimmie. What was that moment like for you?
It was total elation because I thought, finally done. It was a long, long process.
So now that you're published, your work is out there, what would you say is the most rewarding aspect of it all for you?
Right now, the most rewarding aspect is I get compliments from people who have read the preprint and talk about how much they enjoyed it. And from their discussions, I can determine that they understood some of the more technical aspects of the book. So I'm very proud of being able to convey to lay people some complex technical ideas.
So looking ahead, do you think you have more books in you? Do you plan on writing and publishing more, do you think?
This book was written with the background that existed in the world in 2023, and I'm not starting a book on the world as anticipated in 2025 and 26.
Well, again, this book is titled Switched. It's written by Jimmie Dollard and published by Newman Springs Publishing. So pick it up pretty much everywhere, places like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Well, Jimmie, thank you again for coming on the show. It's been nice talking with you.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Crimson Call. It's the name of the new book written by Angela Alvey. And we're going to talk all about it right now here at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. The author, Angela, is here with me. Angela, welcome. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Angela, can you tell me all about Crimson Call and what you've written about here?
It's sort of a story about an alpha wolf and a vampire who she doesn't hunt humans. She's just lives off the animals of the woods and stuff. And they're drawn to each other. They don't really know why, but come to find out he had saved her from her maker about 100 years ago or so. So she finally recognizes who he is, and they become entangled together, much to his pack's dismay, because they're supposed to be mortal enemies. There's bodies that start showing up, and the pack start blaming her, thinking she's responsible. But come to find out it's her younger sister who had also been turned by choice after she had left and was turned. And she was killing everybody. So the pack told her, we're going to stop her or you can stop her, but it's got to stop one way or the other. So she confronts her sister, and there's an argument, and the sister is rebellious and vengeful and was always jealous of her as a child, and because her parents doted on her more. So all of those characteristics were amplified and heightened by her, by being turned. So you have to deal with that, and then she decides to come between her sister and the alpha. And after 1 weak moment, she does succeed in seducing him and becoming pregnant. Well, an ancient entity comes back, which is an ancient born vampire that was her companion that turned her, and she plans on taking her back with her. Anna decides she does not want to go, and they finally all come together, two sisters and the alpha and the pack, to try to defeat this entity and send her back where she came from. But she tells the younger sister, she says, you cannot carry these babies because they're half wolf and half vampire. Your body can't withstand that. You won't live through it. So you find out what happens at the end, who lives and who dies, and the story I'm working on now continues that with the second book.
What kinds of readers do you think would be into it?
Any readers that like the Twilight series, the Vampire Diaries, anything where there's jealousy and envy and the love triangle type of thing, Bitten, anything like that. It's a little spicier than Twilight is, so I would say ages 16 and up, if I were to guess.
And where'd you get this idea? How were you inspired to start it?
I have always been drawn to the darker fantasy type of books and movies ever since I was younger. And I've written poetry my entire life. So I just decided I would start a book, and I got to thinking, what would I really enjoy doing? And I thought, well, fantasy is not something you have to really think about too hard, because it allows you to be whoever or whatever you want to be, even if it's only for a short while.
So is this the first time you've been published then?
It is the first time, yes. I'm working on book 2. I call them my Shades of Red series. So the second one I'm working on should be ready to publish in 3 or 4 months.
So being your first one, was this a long journey overall, the writing and publishing and everything?
It took over a year to write because, I work full time. So just getting the time and the focusing to sit down and just see where I wanted to go with it. Like, I would start writing a chapter, and then someone would say, now don't let this happen. Don't let him be seduced by her when he's in love with her sister. And I said, I didn't plan it that way. It wrote itself. It just kind of happened, So you don't really plan what you're going to do. It sort of just evolves as you're writing.
So now you're officially a published author, Angela. What would you say is the most rewarding aspect of this all for you?
Just knowing it's out there, something that you really enjoy doing. Like, if I could do this for a living, there would be no better dream for me that would come true. So to know that people are actually enjoying it and actually buying it, that's all I could ever ask for.
Well, again, this book is titled Crimson Call. It's written by Angela Alvey and published by Newman Springs Publishing. So pick it up at places like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Angela, thank you again for coming on the show. It's been really great talking with you.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this edition of the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. We hope to see you back here every Friday night at 8 p.m. or listen anytime via podcast at Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, to name just a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where independent new authors come first.